All right, this is the Python Pals CSV to HTML project. I'm Jake Gleason.
I'm Martin Hughes.
And I'm Corey Crosse.
All right, so this is our project statement, and what we wanted this to do is generate CSV files for a random person, and then convert them to HTML files and display them on their own web pages. So every CSV file that is converted will have a person's name, age, height, weight, superpower, and favorite sport. And then the HTML pages that are displayed will have integrated CSS.
All right, so to get into some of our features, first, a random person is generated as a CSV file. Second, the random person's attributes are filled in. Uh, Third, the CSV file that is created is converted to an HTML file. Fourth, each HTML file will be displayed on its own page. Fifth, the HTML pages have CSS integrated with them. And then lastly, we have a check that checks that all the CSS and HTML pages were created successfully.
So getting into our function list, our first function we start off with is create CSV. This is going to use our names import to randomly generate a name. Everything else, the age, height, weight, superpower, and the favorite sport are randomly selected from a range that we've created. And if successfully ran, it will create 35 CSV files for each person. Create HTML will then take those CSV files that we created in the previous function and then generate an HTML page based off of that. The generate CSS function is going to write a reference onto each of the pages, so that way we can now integrate CSS into all the web pages. And our file check is going to go through and it runs through each one of our files, and if either one of them is missing, it will run an error.
All right, so for some of our input and output operations, we have a read operation, which reads a CSV file to acquire the data within it. We have a write operation, which writes HTML from CSV in order to display it on a web page, and it also writes CSS for HTML. And then our to HTML operation converts the CSV files to a viewable HTML web page.
Our traceability matrix, and as you can see, all our features are mapped to a function. So, so if we go back to the feature page, they're numbered 1 through 6, and all the feature 1 through 6 correlates to the functions in order. So a random person is generated as a CSV file is related to function 1, which is create CSV, and so forth. So feature 2 is also part of function 1, and then function 2 handles features 3 and 4, and function 3 handles feature 5, and functions 4, I'm sorry, handles feature 6. And now we're gonna hop into the demo.
Alrighty. So here's our code that we created here. So we start off creating 4 different arrays here with different information in them. So we have an array for age, height, weight, a superpower, and a favorite sport, and all these arrays have different information within them. So to get into our first function here, we have our create CSV. So we're gonna create a random name and assign it to a person. And then we're gonna also pick a random age, height, weight, superpower, and favorite sport from above here using the random choice option. And then we save the random person as a name with all the information in them. And then we write that to a CSV file. And then that gets stored on our file folder over here.
Yep. And so this is the create HTML function. So what this does is takes each CSV file and loops through it, incrementing the counter by 1. So as you can see, web page equals pd.read CSV. That reads the CSV file. And then the next line, webpage.toHTML, that just converts it to HTML. And then the counter for the loop gets incremented, and it repeats that for 35 files. And then we call the function, and that will create the HTML pages.
Going on to generate CSS, you can see we once again go through and loop through our counts. So starting at 1, each one of our files will get labeled a number. Going through each one of those, it will open up the HTML page and it will write a reference to it that will allow us to integrate our style.css, as you can see in our right folder. We close that, and then all of our HTML is applied to each one of the files.
All right, so lastly, we have a file checker. just to make sure that all the files were created successfully. So it's going to go through all the 35 files, and it's going to check to make sure that the file is there, and if it's not, it'll say the file does not exist. So now if we run this code, we'll save it real quick. It's going to run, and as you'll see over here, this is going to get populated with 35 different CSV files that are generated, and then it'll create those HTML pages with the style attached to it. So if we open up the first one here, you'll see we have someone named Arthur Simmons. He's 27. He's 7 foot tall, 140 pounds. He has the power of super speed, and his sport is baseball. And if we check another person, you'll see that they are completely randomized. So all these information is different for every person. And then if we open the to HTML, this is what the pages look like with some styling going on with them, and it'll display that information here. Alright, so to demonstrate that our file check works, we will have it look for a file called 0.html that obviously doesn't get generated. So if we put 0 and then have it look for that and run it, we should get an error message stating that the file does not exist, and which it does.
All right, so as you can see, we have 4 functions and all our features are present. And thank you for your time and thank you for watching.